Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of Straight Talk Whiskey. I'm Nick here with you as always, and thanks for joining us for episode number 116. So, the last of the three bottles that I had ordered from Ireland it already had arrived, but this is finally the last review of those three. So, we've got the Method in Madness range of Irish whiskeys, and we've got the single grain for you. So this is a relatively new venture that has been had by Middleton, and it comprises a number of different types of Irish whiskey out there. Again, this obviously the single grain, there's a single malt out there, and then there's a single pot still, and then there's some variations on the age of those out there as well. So it's an interesting idea, Method in Madness, sort of hearkening to method being the tried and true expertise of the professionals there at Middleton, the master distillers, blenders, that sort of thing, coopers, and mixing that in with some of the newer folks that are up and coming in the industry, and letting them sort of explore a little bit, take a bit of a chance, and try to see what they come up with. So this is sort of the product of that, which is pretty interesting. So bottled at 46% ABV is very nice. I always love to see that 46. If that could be the standard, that would make a lot of whiskeys more palatable, if you will, to a wider range of people, especially people who are connoisseurs, if you will, of it. So it's a really cool bottle. If you ever get a chance to look up close at the label, it's sort of got like this Art Deco styling on the label, and certainly this sort of octagon pattern. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, had a count there because if it were 7, I was going to be out of luck. Pretty interesting. They are matured in bourbon barrels and then have this unique finishing in virgin Spanish oak. So, not sure of the age that's going on there, but nonetheless, that's what we've got. Now, as far as any other details that we get on the bottle, we don't get anything in regards to chill filtration or natural color. Looking at it though, it appears as if it is natural color. I don't know why they would do otherwise with sort of an experiment like this, but there you go. You don't know if they don't tell you. Obviously, one can guess all they want and speculate and be hopeful, but again, we don't know. So in terms of the age, I always just sort of look at sort of the legs or the tiers, as I saw somebody call it, on the glass as you sort of swirl the whiskey around and then see it, similar to wine, you see it trickle down the glass, and sort of a rough, very rough and rudimentary indication of age. It's sort of if it quickly, rolls down the glass back into the bottom of it, back into the contents, then it means it's, sort of young as compared to something that sort of clings to the side of the glass, as you can see it doing here, making sort of these little like spider web long fingered patterns going down the glass. So it does appear that there is some age going on there, but again, you can't speculate on how old it is unless the producer is going to tell you how old it is. So anyway, let's go in for the nose. Now, it's interesting. I saw somebody else do a review of this because I'm always interested in relatively new-ish things. I mean, this has been around for a little while, but it's pretty new in terms of the whiskeys that are out there, especially from Middleton. But always just see if there's other reviews out there. And I saw somebody who had made a comment that, they traditionally don't pick up a lot or don't adhere, to what the experiential notes are, the nose, the taste, the finish, that are typically put on bottles of whiskey to let you sort of have a guide for your tasting and enjoyment. But in this case, he said that it was pretty similar to those notes, and I would have to agree. One of the interesting things that was in here was pencil shavings, which you think like, okay, yeah, I know what that is. I mean, if you were ever in school at a time when you had to sharpen pencils, and now, if you even use a writing utensil at all that's not a, Apple pencil or whatever, or a computer, obviously. But it does taking a nose at it, smells like super fresh number 2, Ticonderoga pencil, the shavings, which is really interesting. I'm also picking up a unique note that I don't get in any whiskey I don't think I've ever had, but just beets for some reason. I mean, I know that they were supposed to experiment a little bit, but they sort of went off the deep end, it seems like, with this, because those are 2 notes that I have never had in the history, at least of the cataloged 114, this being that review, or 116 rather, whiskeys that I've tried. Never have I had those 2 notes before. And the pencil shaving note is the dominating nose of this. It's very soft, it's very subtle. You sort of have to take a strong pass at it. You're not going to get hit with, the alcohol burn or ethanol in there. But it's super subtle, these pencil shavings, and then it's just if you had a finish in the terms of taste and compare that to a finish of the nose, if that makes sense to you, I at least get a smell of beets. Now, unfortunately, beets and olives are probably 2 of the only foods that I just absolutely do not like. I'm pretty open when it comes to trying different foods, and those are just not to my taste. So the pencil shaving was interesting at the nose, but then sort of when you get a really deep smell going on there, you get these beets, and it's a little off-putting to me. So let's go in for the taste. Now, initially when you taste it, you have to give it some time. Again, I've been saying this for like the past month now. But as you can see, I've just taken a pass at this before I did this review and then obviously filled the glass. But you got to give this a little bit of time, a little bit of patience will go a long way with this one. Because at first, my first glass that I poured was just overly soft, wasn't picking up a lot of nuance. I had sort of this meadow hay taste in there, very light, very airy, a lot of cereal notes going on in there, but very soft, very subtle, and an overly quick finish. But as I've taken a pass at it, let the bottle open up just a little bit, obviously it hasn't been as much as if I was halfway through the bottle, but now I'm starting to get a little bit more nuance. So on the tips of the tongue, sort of like coating the front third of the tongue, if you will, at the edge, it's like this creamy honey note, and the mouthfeel is one of the things that stands out. If the pencil shaving note was the standout of the nose on it, for the taste, it's this really creamy texture. It's not like a single pot still. That's more of a syrupy, thick, heavy texture. This is a light, fragrant. It's almost if you were making some like cream of wheat or like oatmeal or something like that, or grits, if you will. Depends on where in the world you are, all those terms. But just sort of skim the top of it off as it was cooking. It's got the same sort of mouthfeel. There's some substance to it, but it's very light and very airy. There's a slight hint of citrus fruit. It's a little bit of a tang, sort of sits in the center of the tongue, similar to the note that I get from Redbreast. It's just a nice little treat. It's just a slight, small pool in the center of the tongue that stays there pretty briefly and then goes away, but it's a nice little hint of nuance in it. I'm sure with some time, letting this open up, I'll get even more nuance that's going in there. But in terms of Irish whiskey, you have to commend them for what they're doing, because there's not a lot of single grains out there to sort of compare and contrast with. So this is definitely a welcome addition to that lineup. I know there's some very charged, mixed reviews about this. Some people just totally write it off, not a fan, wasn't good. And other people, obviously they like it. People have different views, but they seem pretty adamant one way or the other, and there's not a ton of middle ground in here. But I think if you give this time, it's well worth it. I forget exactly the price. I want to say it was between $40, $45 US, but don't quote me on that. That's just sort of what I think it was, and then shipping and all that sort of jazz that comes with it. But super interesting. For what it is, I think it's nice. It's definitely something different. So if you're looking for a change or something that you haven't had before in terms of Irish whiskey, I think this would be a good exploration. I would be interested in getting the single malt, single pot still to see what's going on there, especially the single pot still, just because I'm partial to that in terms of Irish whiskey categories. But there you go. So with that, that is episode number 116. Again, if you're going to drink responsibly, as always, and we'll see you next time.